it's really true.
Everything I
Don't send for the preacher. This isn't his sin. Besides, with the way he's been praying, I think it's time somebody did some listening.
This Carolina swampland holds generations of secrets. In the 1890s, one North Carolinian said all the locals knew escaped slaves lived here. Old folks told of slaves escaping and hiding in the swamp where many died, he said. But not all died. Some thrived, built cabins, hunted with bow and arrow, ate turtle, fish, and acorns.
There's actually very little written down history of African Americans in this area, and part of the reason why is because they didn't want to be found. People in this area came here to get away from people that were looking for them.
The Great Dismal Swamp is known for having more communities of fugitive slaves than any other swamp in the country.
Wanda Hunt McLean is documenting the history of blacks in the region's swamps, and for her, it's personal.
And here she is holding me as a baby. I'm almost bigger than she is. Wow.
McLean's great-grandmother was a slave, and she lived long enough for McLean to know her.
She was either born in 1848 up to 1853.
Uh-huh. So you're saying that they wouldn't have known exactly her age?
I don't know unless her father told her just exactly when she was born, or if her mother. If you know anything about your family history like I know, I have slavery in my family, and I also have ancestors who own slaves, and I'm referring to white ancestors, and then of course I have black people who were slaves. So to me, it's important that my children know, that my grandchildren know, and I think other children should know, because a lot of people, they know absolutely nothing about their history.
And so when McLean's commute took her past the Great Dismal Swamp, she started to look into the history of blacks in the region, and she was startled by what she found. In 1763, George Washington headed a project to dig a canal through the swamp. Many slaves were brought to the area to work on that project. But some came to the area in secret on the Underground Railroad, and some of those slaves didn't continue north on the road to freedom. They stayed. Hidden in the dense brush of the area, they formed a community, a colony called Maroons.
There is documentation from William Byrd, who was a surveyor from Virginia, and he and his surveyors were trying to draw the line between the swamp, between Virginia and North Carolina, and he came across a family, and he referred to them as a group of mulattoes who apparently escaped, and they were living in the swamp.
One researcher says that up to 10 generations of African Americans lived here in the Great Dismal Swamp. They lived alongside Native Americans and other white outliers.
A man named Moses Grandy was first brought to the area to work on the canals. Soon he was living in the swamp.
One night, I was awoke by some large animal smelling my face and snuffing strongly. I felt its cold muzzle. I suddenly thrust out my arms and shouted with all my might. It was frightened, made off. I slept, of course, no more that night. I put my trust in the Lord. I was never attacked again.
I love stories about just spirits like that.
Molly McGinn came across Moses Grandy's story when she was in a tough place in her own life.
I couldn't find a job. I couldn't get hired anywhere. And the unemployment had run out. I had been in a band, and that band had exploded and imploded in heartbreaking ways, just kind of financially and emotionally and creatively. It was heartbreaking.
She stumbled upon the history of the Great Dismal Swamp, and she was hooked, especially the story of the Maroons, the slaves who escaped and lived there.
And I believe in the soul of places. I believe, I love how you can kind of feel a history and a story in some places, and something about that just kind of fired up this imagination. But I also really wanted to go and get some kind of like belligerent baptism and just, I don't know, sink my hands in the mud and turn my luck around and just get some of the spirit of that place on me.
Each time she'd scrape together some money, she'd explore a different part of the Dismal and other area swamps. There was just something about the place itself. It calmed her, it soothed her, it made her remember that others suffer and that we all have strength. Soon her creative juices were flowing again.
Oh day, come run away, we gonna hide out in the swamp. Drank illegal liquor and oysters from the river. Now tell me else, what could you want?
The swamp worked its magic. Molly McGinn's written what she calls a swamp opera.
I was looking for a triumphant story, and I found it there. I found it in the swamp.
No, you can't call me a coward. Or for trying to put a little power into my own hands. Oh, now get in there and christen a right many Christians. There's money